Hello and welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's first and only daily show dedicated to startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Chandra Shrikant, joining you live from India's startup capital, Bengaluru.
And I'm Krishna Kumar, coming to you live from ET Now's Mumbai studios. We do have, as usual, a power-packed 20 minutes lined up for you. But first up, a check on all that's making headlines over here at ET Now Startup Central. Uber will sell its China unit to its bigger rival, Didi Chuxing, creating a $35 billion taxi aggregator in the world's second largest economy. The much-awaited goods and services tax will be a reality in the coming days, but if there's one section that is crying foul over some of the provisions of this bill, it is software lobby Nasscom and Internet lobby IAMAI. They've said that GST in its current form will throttle IT services and the internet economy, particularly the e-commerce marketplaces. And in our special segment, Budding Star, we feature Craftsvilla, an online ethnic wear portal. We get a chat with the founder, Manoj Gupta, a little later on the show.
Krishna, let's take it to the top story then, a deal that has the internet world really buzzing today, because after a prolonged struggle, Uber has decided to merge its China unit with the incumbent leader Didi Chuxing in a merger valued at a whopping $35 billion. Now, this comes after heavy losses that Uber faced in China. Reports say that, it's lost over $2 billion in the last couple of years. And I guess they decided that this is really not a battle worth fighting alone. So even in his Facebook post, if you look at what Travis Kalanick has said, one quote where he says, an entrepreneur also needs to think with his head and not just follow the heart. And he said that this was only the way forward if both companies have to go profitably. But Krishna, apart from this merger, what's really interesting is all the cross-pollination that's happening here, because Didi Chuxing is also an investor in India's Ola. So technically, Uber is an investor in Ola. And believe it or not, Apple invested in Didi, which is now invested in Uber. So Apple is now technically an investor both in Uber and Ola. So, it's a crazy game out there. I mean, if this was a sitcom, it would have been the most fascinating thing in the world. Right. But to really give us more insight on this, we have two special guests on the show. Rehan Yar Khan of Urias Venture Partners, someone who was an early investor in Ola, made a lot of money out of it, and also Siddharth Pawar from Meru, which, remember, is really fighting a battle there as far as cab aggregation is concerned. Rehan, I'm going to take it to you first. As an early investor in Ola, what's your take on this mega merger? And more importantly, the India implication. Does it mean Uber has more ammunition now to throw into India?
See, thanks, Chandra. Our take is that it's clearly a profit march for Uber in China. All right, there's news reports about their investors putting pressure on them. They seem to be, they need to head towards their IPO. They've raised money at a 60 billion plus valuation. Their IPO will have to be at least at 100 billion if it's going to return any kind of decent money to their investors. They need to start booking profitability, and I think once Didi announced in June that it had raised $7.3 billion, I think it was game over for Uber on that day, and Travis probably just, took the first flight in and inked the best deal he could get. I'm just surprised that they got that he managed to get 20%, because there was absolutely no reason for Didi to have given him that. They virtually stamped them out of the China market with that kind of fundraise, and they were already at 90% market share. So that's what we think has happened over there.
Rehan, please hold your thoughts. We will come back to you for a few more questions. But for now, I'm just going to bring in Mr. Siddhartha Pawar, CEO of Meru Cabs, who does join us on the phone line from Mumbai. Mr. Pawar, I wanted to understand, what is your take? Didi Chuxing, China's largest player, merging with their nearest competitor. What does it mean for a market like India, where we've seen so much happen between the competitors already?
Okay. So thank you, Chandra. First of all, the merger in China between Didi and Uber has proven what Meru has been saying for many months. There is no significant differential technology pay play available between any of the aggregators, including Meru. Yeah, only few aggregators are abusing capital to try to create a monopoly or a duopoly in the market by throwing discounts at consumers and incentive to driver. You are aware, based on the published accounts of one of the largest aggregators in India, for every rupees 100 recovered from customer, rupees 250 is being paid back to the driver. Yeah, and the second largest aggregator in India is also no different in its approach. The game is also being played in India, where both consumers and driver are fooled to believe that aggregators have got something special with them. We believe there is a high probability a similar arrangement can also happen in India between the aggregators, and that will lead to a clear monopoly. And once monopoly is established in India, the fare for taxi travel will significantly increase and passenger will be left with no option but to pay whatever the fares are. We also believe...
Right, Mr. Pava, hold your thoughts there. I just want to bring in Rehan, who's one of the early investors in Ola. Rehan, you saw Meru Cabs' CEO, they're really crying foul, saying, a similar arrangement might play out in India as well. But I think we have an anti-monopoly watchdog, unlike China. And I think the Indian government, at least as yet, hasn't started taking stakes in, these internet companies. But Rehan, one half of Twitterati is pretty upset with the way things are playing out. They think the Indian government doesn't back up internet companies the way China does. There's not enough domestic capital around. What is your own take? I mean, on the face of it, this is clearly anti-free market. But look at the way China is really protecting, its Alibaba and its Didi.
So what's very important, Chandra, is that you need a great domestic capital industry. India can't survive on foreign capital alone. Right? Foreign capital is fickle, foreign capital can be expensive, it's subject to market currency, it's subject to currency fluctuations. A lot of this capital only comes in on for tried and tested models, it doesn't really support innovation. So what you definitely need, is a domestic capital industry, right? Which is absent in India. All our capital is foreign capital. Until the government doesn't get that going, there are going to be a lot of challenges in India. And I think it's a good thing, right, that government provides support to venture capital or certain state enterprises. They come and they participate in these companies. If you look at the Alibaba IPO, the Chinese state enterprises have made a killing on that market, right? Once they're invested in their private forms over there. So you definitely need that in India, and that is completely absent.
All right, Rehan, quickly, I'm just going to try to wrap this up as, so I'm just going to check with you. Your last thoughts, Rehan, on, the way forward, if Uber and Didi Chuxing do this in China, what do you think is the way forward as far as the Indian cab aggregator space is concerned?
So I think Uber is going to reduce its burn in India. Right? They probably need to head for an IPO. They've raised money at very high valuations, 68 billion last reported valuation. They need to return. They need to get to at least $100 billion IPO. So they're going to have to cut burn in India, right? And that's, I think, good news for the industry. It's going to be more innovation focused. I think as the gentleman at Meru said that it need not be burn focused. It needs to be innovation focused. So I think it's going to drive towards that. I think the domestic aggregator in India has definitely done a lot of innovation work because it didn't possibly have the capital to fight Uber. They introduced Ola Micro, which is I think a significant innovation, providing cabs at that price point, and they've done a lot of other work around that. So I think it's going to head more towards innovation and less towards capital.
All right, Rehan, I'm just going to take this to Mr. Siddharth Pawar. Then, Mr. Siddharth Pawar, this is Krishna coming to you from Mumbai studios. Chandra was made a very pertinent point about the way China supports its Didi Chuxings or Alibaba, and you were talking about the possibility of cartelization. If something similar were to happen in the Indian market, what do you think India needs to do, to create the Didi Chuxings and the Alibabas of the world out of here?
So I think one thing which is very clear, that as Rehan also mentioned, that what we need is good technology, and all the players, whether they are the earlier players or the new age players, all have to work on the technology, and that's what Meru has been doing. Meru has been working on its technology right from the day one, and has come up with the new technology features, and the latest one is we integrating ourselves with the Facebook Messenger bot for booking. Yeah. However, what we also believe is that in India, the structuring is very different. China is many years ahead of us as far as infrastructure development is concerned. And if India has to grow at about 10% plus GDP, infrastructure has to play a very important role. And taxi very much comes under that infrastructure space. We believe that rather than creating a monopoly and allowing a monopoly to be created in this category and in this sector, more investment by allowing more competition should come into this. People should say, let's fight on the competitiveness of technology, competitiveness of thinking process, competitiveness on processes, and rather than just pure play, abuse of capital to create a sort of a predatory situation. And that's what I think the government is working towards. The steps taken by the government to say that surge pricing beyond a certain price would not be allowed, as I think is a step towards that they want to bring in more competitiveness. And at the same time, we believe deep discounting would also be controlled by the government to some extent. That deep discounted with the intent of predation should not be allowed.
Right. Thanks for that, Mr. Pawar. I just want to get some closing thoughts from Rehan. Rehan, you said that this might reduce burn in India for Uber, but the counter-intuitive thought that, possibly everyone is saying is this actually frees them up to pour more money into India, because if Travis Kalanick has lost China, he clearly wouldn't want to lose India as well. I mean, that seems to be Amazon's way of thinking, and, does it put pressure on Ola now to go out there, raise funds, put in more money?
So Chandra, I think Amazon is a very different company, right? It's IPO'd, it's a cash machine. Uber is not in that position yet. They yet need to IPO. They have to return money to investors. So yes, I'm sure Travis and Uber would love to win India, and this is a market they can't afford to lose, and maybe they'll just throw a whole lot of capital at it. But I think, from reading all the news articles out there and seeing all the reports, I think they are gearing up for an IPO in the next year or two, and they will want to cut their burn in various markets. I think US also, they've got a few challenges recently which have come up via Lyft. And they're seeing that in a couple of other markets. So I think they're going to kind of, double down on their existing markets. Travis alluded to, investing in driverless cars and other such things. So I think they possibly might go in that direction, which is more innovation-led than burn-led. And I think they're going to gun for their IPO. That's my sense of it. Of course, like you said, that could be the counterintuitive argument as well.
Right. Rehan and Siddharth, thank you so much for joining us, on this big story in the tech and internet space, something that's going to keep the internet world buzzing for a long time to come, but great to get both your insights there. Moving on from that to another important piece of legislation, the GST, Goods and Services Tax, which is set to become a reality this week. Now, on the face of it, everybody is happy with it. They are calling it the reform of the decade. But guess what? India's IT services and internet companies are certainly not a happy lot when it comes to GST, because they feel that a lot of provisions there are really unfavorable as far as internet companies are concerned. Internet lobby IAMAI, software lobby Nasscom, they have made representations with government in this regard, and we have Nasscom President R. Chandrasekhar on the phone line this evening with us to really highlight some of those concerns. So thank you so much for joining us on ET Now Startup Central. GST is set to become a reality in the next day or two. Take us through, the key concerns as far as e-commerce marketplaces are concerned, startups are concerned, and do you believe the government will address this, considering you have made representations to them in the last couple of months?
Yeah, good evening, Chandra. Yeah, I think the first, let me make a couple of things clear. That as an industry, we are supportive of GST. And I think we have no issues and no problems with the Constitution Amendment Bill that is being tabled in the Rajya Sabha. Okay. But the concerns that we have are regarding something else, which is with the model law of GST, which is a later step and which gets into the nitty-gritties of how this GST would be implemented. And that is where I think there are certain concerns that the industry has with regard to what will happen at that stage. Notably, we have, of course, some concerns with regard to IT services and the treatment of services, especially IT services. But since you asked me the question about e-commerce, that is a slightly different set of concerns over there. And there the concern is that there is a stipulation of tax collection at source on the marketplace provider. And essentially what this means is that, in the marketplace model, the platform will need to deduct tax at source. The implication of this is that, number one, tax will be deducted for sellers who may otherwise be exempt from tax, either because of they don't meet the minimum turnover threshold or they are otherwise already in an exempted category. The second is that if this tax collection at source applies only for people who are selling on a platform, not if they are selling on their own platform. If they are selling on a marketplace electronic platform, then this tax will be deducted at source. But if they were doing it on their own, then it doesn't apply. Now, the implication of this again is that we are, in a sense, discouraging people from selling on such an electronic marketplace. And we know that that is a more efficient way. That is the way in which small businesses can reach a much wider market in India and globally. Such a dispensation actually mitigates against the very spirit of digital India and moving into a cashless mode. It is our contention that e-commerce enables tax compliance. It enables complete tracking of all transactions and therefore will be an aid to tax, enhancing the tax net. So I think it requires to be treated from that perspective rather than looking at it as a way by which people avoid tax, which is, I think, completely incorrect.
Mr. Chandrasekhar, this is Krishna Kumar coming to you from ET Now's Mumbai studios. I was just reading the statements from the Internet and Mobile Association of India, which has come out, which has not been very charitable towards GST. It's like, it says that it takes the economy several decades back and lacks proper understanding of the telecommunications business per se. I want to understand, we're at the threshold of the GST becoming a reality. It's going to be less than 48 hours when it will be tabled in the Rajya Sabha for a debate. What can be done now if this is so not welcome for the e-commerce players, or for the matter the digital India as a goal? What can be done now? What is the plan right now?
No. Again, let me go back to the very first statement that I made. What is being tabled in the Rajya Sabha is the Constitution Amendment Bill. Now, we have no problem with the Constitution Amendment Bill, and to the best of my knowledge, nor do the others. The problem is not with the GST per se. The problem is with regard to how it is proposed to be implemented under the model GST laws. That is not something which is going to come into force now. That is only a draft which has been tabled for a discussion on which opinions are being sought and on which we are giving our opinion. So that is something which will happen several months down the road when all the states and the central government will need to pass laws, and those laws will be enabled to be passed only after this Constitution Amendment Bill is passed. So it is a two-step process. First step is fine. We have no issues. That's what is happening day after tomorrow. Second step is where We have problems that will happen a few months down the road, and we believe that our concerns have been understood. The government at the center appreciates the fact that we do have concerns. They have heard us. We had met the finance minister in person, and we believe that a dialogue which is on will reach some kind of a resolution of these issues and concerns.
Right.
So it is not as if it
Finally,
is too late in the day.
Right,
Yes,
right.
go ahead.
Finally, sir, you said that this is a few months down the road, but between then and now, any other measures that you will be initiating in the coming weeks or months? And considering Flipkart, Snapdeal are one end of the spectrum, Amazon is in the other side. I don't even know if they are working together towards these concerns. How are you planning to take this forward?
You see, what we understand and what we have been given to understand in the dialogue that we have had so far, both with the finance minister and at the official level, is that these issues will be discussed in further detail as we go forward. They have recognized that certain service areas, in particular IT, the telecom and financial services, do have some special challenges and which warrant a distinct treatment. And therefore, we are at a stage where we are trying to say, these are how these transactions take place. This is why they actually aid in tax collection. This is what should be done, and this is what should not be done. If you do this, then, we will be forcing platforms to collect tax at source from people who don't have that liability.
Right.
This will hit lakhs of small businesses and small dealers, which is not the intention of the government. So you will be impacting the platforms, you will be impacting small businesses, and it is at the end of the day not going to actually enhance tax revenues. It's only going to result in a lot of collection and refunds and litigation.
Right.
That is not the kind of situation that the GST is supposed to
Mr. Chandrasekhar.
create.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Mr. Chandrasekhar, thank you so much for all your thoughts and perspective. We will be tracking this issue closely and, of course, track what Nasscom will be doing on the same.
And with that, we wrap things up here on this edition of ET Now Startup Central. Thank you so much for watching. Don't go anywhere. Keep it with ET Now.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/etnow.